2, 1.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings, with yet another important update about what's really happening out there with Tim Picciott and myself. I will be going over all the social, political aspects. Tim will be going over all the economic aspects. And economically, there's a lot of interesting things happening with progressives being shocked that they actually support Donald Trump's latest aid package deal, which Tim is going to be discussing, while establishment Democrats are not that happy with it. But anyway, moving forward, our lives have been interrupted, as shown by these latest satellite images from above, showing just how much of an impact this coronavirus is having on our average daily lives. And of course, this is something that is unprecedented, something that we are dealing with right now, and something that we will be dealing with for a while. And looking at headlines like this, it's again, I've been very realistic. I've been very honest with people here. Seeing a headline like this, especially with the Baltimore mayor begging his residents to stop shooting each other so they could stop clogging up the beds so people could actually deal with this virus, it's it doesn't really provide for the best optimistic kind of environment, to be honest with you. But again, the information coming in needs to be reported. I'd rather be in the know than in the blind. Also,
I just actually envision a bunch of rats like shooting each other in Baltimore. Like that's just what goes through my head as you're saying Baltimore residents.
I mean, I've been to Baltimore before. It is a very serious situation. And I was there covering the riots before, and knowing some parts of America, I know this is not going to be an easy ride, especially dealing with this. And of course, a lot of people are unprepared, and a lot of people are buying up a lot of toilet paper, which is moving on to our next story, forcing some Americans literally to cross over to Mexico to buy up toilet paper just to bring back to the United States. I have some friends down in Mexico. They say everything's in the stores. There's not a lot of panic buying. Everything so far in Mexico socially is fine compared to here, where mayors are pleading with their residents not to shoot each other. But Trump is making some decisive moves. He has also deployed a Navy floating hospital to New York City Harbor, which, of course, everyone sees in New York City as the next latest major epicenter. And of course, this is as the latest news is coming in with the NYPD preparing to put its officers on 12-hour shifts. It's usually 8-hour shifts that they work, but they're doing this because many of their officers are calling out sick and are unable to work. This is as also Philadelphia has told police officers not to arrest people for nonviolent crimes. And yeah, you can only see where this trajectory is going as new studies and information is coming out about the virus, that we're learning new stuff every single day about it. The latest thing is that young adults are making up a big proportion of course, the U.S. hospitalizations when it comes to the coronavirus. So this is worrying, and this again goes against a lot of the data that we've been hearing from the very beginning, that this only affects old people. It definitely does not only affect old people. There's a lot of videos going around social media, especially of younger people just having an extremely hard time to breathe. I talked to a doctor who's in Washington State. Washington State is the state that's most heavily hit with the coronavirus right now. It looks like New York City will soon surpass them. But he told me just how brutal it is to see some of these young people, and just the agony and pain that they have to go through. There's also new studies coming out. Again, these are all preliminary studies, but they're showing that children may play a major role in spreading this virus, even though a lot of them are not affected by it as severely as other people. There's also other information coming off that a lot of people who are dying from it are dying with complications from other diseases and other illnesses that they had before. Italy is also seeing, just recently, 475 new coronavirus deaths. This is the highest one-day death toll of any country. And again, this is also with a cursor here. China has been accused of underreporting its numbers. Just the precursor here. But
Wait, the
still,
Chinese, they do that? I don't believe it.
yeah. Still, 475 new coronavirus deaths. That's a huge number. The infections are also skyrocketing, and really the situation is turning out really bad in Italy, with some people saying that the rate of infections is actually flatlining, which we could hope continues. But again, everything is still up in the air in Italy to see if they could actually take care of everyone. Meanwhile, in South Korea, cases are dropping sharply. That's because of aggressive testing. That's because of aggressive border moves, which has not been happening here in the United States. I've been talking to, again, check out the main channel video on We Are Change. I talked to a doctor on the front lines, and he told us the government is making this 10 times worse. And how can you not believe that? Now, the video is getting some criticism, but look at this other information coming in that the World Health Organization admits that it never even offered the United States testing kits. But they say that the United States didn't even ask for them. They're also showing that the CDC, again, had enough domestic capacity to deal with this, but they didn't. There's also a lot of regulations, a lot of red tape, a lot of government intervention standing in the way from actually providing these tests quickly and effectively, which is key in dealing with this. And it's basic protocols that have not been followed, and there deserves to be an extreme amount of criticism on the government for doing this, because again, it shows that they weren't taking this seriously. Tucker Carlson had to literally, according to the New York Times, drive down to Mar-a-Lago to talk to Donald Trump and ask him to take this seriously. It looks like Donald Trump is making some aggressive moves. We'll discuss those later on. But of course, the New York Post also came out with an article showing that Chinese officials knew of this coronavirus in December, and they ordered a cover-up of it. That is not a surprise there. The United States, either with incompetence or by doing this on purpose. There's been theories about herd immunity. The doctor I talked to does not believe that's true. Again, very eye-opening 40-minute. It was supposed to be a 10-minute video, ended up a 40-minute interview. But a lot of people should be outraged because, again, the government is not taking this seriously, and they're creating a lot of tragedies, a lot of panic that could have been prevented. All of this could have been avoidable if it was taken seriously from the beginning, which we've been saying to take it seriously from the beginning. I was in Costco telling my family and friends, you need to pack up, you need to stack up in January, late January, early February. None of them were taking me seriously. They were laughing at me, and now here we are. Still, there's a lot of people not taking this seriously. This, to me, is a very, very serious situation. There's also new scientific data coming in that there are experimental drugs that are showing some positive effects with this coronavirus, specifically anti-malaria medication that is showing good effects on treating this new virus.
If I get corona, I get.
You can just see some of the individuals, they're not taking it seriously. That's one reason to be concerned. The second reason is because people are under-equipped. There's a lot of government ignorance and bureaucracy making this worse on purpose, but also the CDC also told nurses, because of the shortages of medical supplies, since the United States relies on medical supplies from other countries, specifically China, that we're in an economic war with. That's a whole nother story. But the CDC told some nurses that, just wrap a bandana around your face, it'll be fine. And of course, that's not the truth at all. The CDC contradicted the Surgeon General before, when the Surgeon General said not to wear masks, with many people who are asymptomatic not knowing that they have it, spreading it, which is just, again, when it comes to government incompetency, I could keep going on and on and on. But again, take this seriously. Try to avoid getting sick as much as you can. Try to become a Buddhist monk. Try to meditate a little bit. Quarantining, cleaning your house, organizing it won't hurt. Again, the situation is very serious, and we're getting news that some hospitals in New York City have already run out of ICU beds and those specific ventilators, and that some patients are being double ventilated right now in some hospitals in New York City, with that situation, of course, soon to turn worse. Yeah. And all of this, Donald Trump has suspended evictions, and he authorized the Defense Production Act to mobilize businesses to, of course, aid with this response. And he also signed off on this coronavirus aid bill. Tim, this is your line of specialty or of expertise, the economic news. What do you make of Donald Trump's coronavirus aid bill?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. So we've got Trump signs off on coronavirus aid bill, and this measure provides free coronavirus testing and ensures paid emergency leave for those who are infected or caring for a family member with the illness. The bill also provides additional Medicaid funding food assistance, and unemployment benefits. Now, as part of this, there's also a second phase. The second phase is an $8.3 billion, which is what the House passed. Of course, they're going to focus that on vaccine research. So another big surprise, that big pharma, that's phase one, that, we're taking care of big pharma. And then eventually we get to phase three, which Republicans are turning their attention now to what they're calling the third phase of the coronavirus response, which is a $1 trillion proposal from the White House that would include $500 billion in direct payments to Americans. It sounds like there's going to be in waves where there might be $1,000 in the first wave and then potentially another $1,000 in another wave. I don't think any of those details are necessarily clear. Originally, we had talked about having some sort of payroll tax cut, which that's what I would have preferred. I've actually been holding off doing my own payroll because I'm like, okay, if we can, if I could run it with a 0% one, I'd rather do that. So
yeah, and they postponed the filing dates, by the way, as well.
Yeah, so it figures the first time I've ever filed my taxes on time, and now now it's delayed. So just exactly how my life is going these days. But as we're this is all way too little, too late in my opinion. I don't think they can really Humpty Dumpty is broke right now. It's gonna be very, very hard, if not impossible, to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And all this stems from the fact that our money is debt, that we have to borrow our money out of existence from a private central bank in order to get that money into the economy. So you're always going to have more debt than you have money. And eventually it gets to the point where it's out of control. We've had 3 central banks in America before. We've had the first central bank of America that ended in 1812. The British came here, burned down the White House. Second central bank, Andrew Jackson got rid of. And then the central banker at the time, Nicholas Biddle, tried doing everything he could to raise rates, try to screw him because they didn't have Twitter back then. So it was a little bit tougher to get information out. And now we've got the third central bank, which is the Federal Reserve, which is not federal, not reserving anything. And so this is the problem. The crux is we don't own our own money. This is money and that's why behind me it says, you guys probably can't see in the picture now, but it says the King's, actually I don't even know what it says. It says King's ransom. That's what it says. I should have known that before I went into that. So it's to signify that this is not our money. And so right now, it doesn't matter how much more fake money you throw at this, because there's going to be other unintended consequences. And eventually, those unintended consequences are going to be, people are probably going to use it to pay down debt and just pay down whatever, help pay whatever ongoing bills are. But what's $1,000 going to mean when you all of a sudden you're used to making 50, 60, 70,000 a year, and now you're not making anything. I've had that happen to me. That happened to me 2 years ago, where long story short, in order for me to speak at Anarchapulco, I had to give up my career, and I thought I was only going to be out for a week, and the state took a year, basically, or half a year to get my paperwork approved. So I know exactly how difficult this is for people. I have great empathy for people, and all I really want to do is try to help, save as many people as we can, because this whole system cannot be saved. And if you have cancer, you don't try to just getting rid of a little bit of cancer. You've got to get rid of all of it. And one thing I really want to stress to people from a financial planning standpoint is, and let me, before I go into that, here's a headline from Zero Hedge, Rabobank. We were warned the dollar would go up, 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 and then up, and well, here we are. And so I mentioned this the other day, and I mentioned this in advance, that actually I thought that during a collapse in the beginning stages, you would see the dollar go up, which then has its own set of unique circumstances that do, go along with that. Now, the other thing that was going on is that, this is actually the article I meant to pull up, is that we are not sure what's going on. Markets hit sell everything moment after largest on record 8 sigma crash. Now, what that means is that essentially what happened on Wednesday markets just suffered the biggest balanced portfolio drop in history, surpassing both the insanity of last week and the global financial crisis. So this is an 8 standard deviation move. I'm pretty sure that a 3 standard deviation move basically means there's less than 0.5% chance of that happening. So an 8 standard deviation move is, I would have to go look that up. But if someone could put that in the comments, that would be awesome, and let us know what that means. Crowdsource this. But that's probably got to be, I don't know, it's probably more than 1 in a million type chance. But what a balanced portfolio means is, a lot of people say, hey, in order to get yourself through this, you have to be diversified. So, but the problem is, when everything goes down, it doesn't really matter. Diversification does actually go out the window. It went out the window in 2008. It's going out the window right now. And so there were some strategies that we're trying to employ to help people out with that. But with what went on yesterday, is that you had a simultaneously stock market crash while the bond market was rising. And so what happens is when you have a bond market, let's say you have a 10-year bond, it's trading at $1 million. If rates go up 1%, your $1 million is now roughly 900,000. Now you'll still get your, piddly amount of interest. I mean, nowadays, they're really not even giving out any interest. But if rates, let's say, go up 2%, well, now because of compounding, your $1 million would now be closer to $780,000. And so people are playing a very dangerous game in the bond market right now, where they're going into the bond market for safety, but it's not providing. But essentially, one term I've heard before is you're trying to pick up pennies in front of a steamroller. That's what I think people are trying to do right now in the bond market. But the problem is the stock market's also super dangerous. And so that's one thing I've really tried stressing to people is that concept of interest rate risk, where when you have the underlying bonds value, the yields go up, the underlying values of the bonds go down. So it sort of works like a teeter-totter. So yields going up. So let's say rates go from 1% to 2%, underlying value of the bonds go down. Now you're then forced to sell when your bonds have already been decimated. You're never going to get that back. And I've been screaming for people at the top of my lungs about this, and it's not to show that I'm right. It's to try to help as many people as possible. And so it's just very frustrating seeing all of this going on. Trump's bill. Yeah, I mean, I know everyone needs a strong leader, a strong man to do something. But as a libertarian, I don't want the government doing anything, and I think that they caused a lot of this to begin with. I think that all of this is they're just trying to paper over more and more debt, because all the system cares about is if people can hit their minimum interest payment. And so, yeah, is it good that they're doing something just to show that they're doing something? I don't know, maybe for people's own psyche. But at this point, the problem is so great in terms of on so many different levels, whether it's the pensions, whether it's the bond market, whether it's, high yield bonds, whether it's the stock market. I mean, there's just so many different things right now, whether it's the demographics of America, the huge underlying debt. I just don't see any of this being able to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And quite frankly, the quicker we sort of rip off this Band-Aid, I think the better it would be, Luke. And it's devastating to know that there's a lot of people who lost their lives over this, people that are going to lose their lives, lose their homes, and it does pain me to know this, and to know that we're not at the end of this game. I don't think we're just going to be some quick V-shaped recovery and all of a sudden just ride it out, because there's a lot of people now who are 65, 75 years old and they can't ride it out, and that does pain me.
Yeah, and that's what Donald Trump says. Is like, we're going to bounce back from this really quickly. It's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to go higher than we were before. And it's like, I mean, look how drastic these moves are. I mean, Trump is pretty much in line with the progressives. We're talking about a universal basic income becoming a reality in this country. And Steven Mnuchin just said publicly, because again, a lot of people, blindly like, this is going to be great for us. We need this. And legitimately, some people do need this. When you look at the average American, they don't have any savings. They have a lot of debt. And this just came out from Steven Mnuchin. He says, checks for all Americans will not be cut for at least 3 weeks. And he says if this crisis continues, which it will, most likely will go on for a few months, there will be another round of up to $1,000 per adult. That's regardless of your location, which, if you're living in like, Wyoming compared to New York City, there's a difference there with how much money you spend, and also how much money you have. If you're a millionaire or a billionaire, you might not need that much money as someone else who is in debt and made very poor decisions and went to college and is indebted and is a virtual slave to the system, because that's what the system kind of pushes people to be. But checks are going to be, this is according to the information that we're getting right now, $1,000 per person, $500 per child. So I mean, how do you think? I was doing a lot of research on the Great Depression. We should make a Great Depression comparison video to what's happening now, because there's a lot of similarity. I've been doing a lot of research yesterday on it. But let's try to end it here. But I mean, for a short while, this might have positive effects, but we're talking about like a big amount of socialism here with this $1,000 per adult. Before, just really quickly, what kind of effects do you see it having with the economy? And let's end it from here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be give it a temporary boost, but people famously do a lot of stupid things with their money. So you give a lot of people who are already in debt to begin with, maybe they'll pay it off. But right now, what people are going to have to do is they're just going to have to pay just to get the groceries, if they can even get groceries. And then now we've got reports of do not take a bunch of cash out of the bank because of coronavirus. And so now, and we'll put that up on screen for 2 seconds here. So
That's
now,
CNN. When CNN is telling you that, I mean, as we've been saying, the writing is on the wall.
yeah, I mean, you got CNN telling you that, and you did want to make me have a comparison between the Great Depression. Actually, right here in my hot little hands, I have a book called Manias, Panics, and Crashes.
Let's do a whole video about this.
Yeah,
Let's do a whole video about
yeah,
this.
and I read this. But funny, I actually read this book in late 2007. So it's kind of funny that I literally read this book like as we were at the all-time high from that, and then we papered that crash over. But anyways, I think this is all way too little, too late. I think it's very funny that they made the statement of if we're still in a crisis 3 weeks from now, because I think 3 weeks from now people are going to wish that it was only as bad as it is right now. But
Yeah.
hopefully I'm wrong on that.
I remember Ron Paul and the whole audit the Fed discussion being like, if we really find out what the Fed's doing, the economy's going to crash. And Ron Paul was making this argument for even before 2008. We need to pull off the Band-Aid quicker because the damage that's going to be done is going to be far worse than quickly pulling off the Band-Aid. Again, that's our take on it. Stay tuned for more here on Change the News channel.